mom
like
says it's time to talk.
that would be a down payment to me. It'd be like, thank you for that. Now, where's the rest of it? If
Right,
if that's that influential.
Yeah.
Welcome to while we weren't recording.
While you weren't recording, while you weren't listening.
Patreon, or give us a like and a subscribe, and I'll talk more about that at the end. Today we are talking about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood section 3, 4,
5,
12,
5, sir.
5.
Yeah.
Is it 5?
3 is right out unless thou proceedest exactly to 5. Like,
3 is the last time he was around for one.
Time flies. Okay, I lose track.
it says it on the big board when
He
you came in
doesn't.
here.
He can't read English.
It says section ... I can't see the last bit.
Hover over it.
When
That
you
actually
clicked
doesn't help.
in, when you clicked in at a minimum, because that's where I saw it, so that's why I know. But
He can't read English.
yeah,
I can't read. Okay, I'm illiterate.
yes,
Yeah, all those books are just for show.
right.
Obviously,
I'm
And
does
the
it for,
glasses.
he does it for internet clout.
compensating. Okay, you caught me. You caught me.
That's why he doesn't. He's never actually read a Dresden Files book. He just listens to the audiobook in Norwegian.
It's
Don't
true.
we all?
No, we don't.
I don't think it's translated to any Nordic language, actually.
Well, you should get on that. You can make yourself like Duns of Cronin Kruger or whatever your currency is.
The casual indifference to my culture.
It's not casual. It's active.
Yeah. I mean, this is peacetime talk too, right? Just imagine when we come from Greenland, what that's going to look like.
And
so,
we will be coming from Greenland. Don't you fear.
Should we draw up some treaty beforehand here in the podcast just so we can remain on?
You have no bargaining power. You don't even have cinnamon.
Perhaps if we were allies on the same time, that could have been taken into consideration. But no, we're the gimme administration now, apparently. So you
know
want
you're hiding
details.
I thought you were the executive order administration.
No, we
Well,
know
yeah.
you're hiding all the real IKEA instructions where the product actually works, and we're going to come for them.
No, those are state secrets.
Exactly. And soon we will own your state.
Yeah. What they're in a panic for is
of it, and it's in a locked safe box in every house. And that only the head of the household has the combination.
Uh-huh.
nice. I think the real panic is that when Trump started rattling his saber and everything like that, Denmark has plenty of sabers, right? Figuratively speaking, but they're all deconstructed somewhere. So they're like, "Oh my God, get the instructions!" and start
Well, then when you
building
put
the
them
missiles.
together, they are just actual sabers. They don't shoot sabers, so it doesn't really
Right.
help.
Yeah. Anyway,
That is actually Sweden, by the way. Just to make it clear, IKEA is in fact not from Denmark, but I
Right.
think it is anyway. They can have their misunderstandings. I just want to make the record clear here, so I don't get Nordics after me saying I'm saying, because that would be no.
sorry, different one. It's Lego for you guys. So wildly
is true.
different. Everything we said is just incorrect. Get the instructions so that you can put the Legos together.
But when people come running over the border, we just throw down Lego. What are they going to do? They'll
Right.
step on it and they can't go on.
They're going to build a Connects bridge over it.
They basically only have one battalion of tanks, but it's okay because it's built out of Lego. So good luck with that,
We might have
So-
one tank if we take all the parts from the different tanks and put them together.
Well, you'd have one big tank then. Yeah.
I think we sent the rest of all our equipment to Ukraine. So
Fair.
good
So-
time for Trump to take Greenland at least.
Oh,
They can
man.
rebuild.
You know who else
a
has
can-
tanks?
Lots of people.
The country in the thing we're supposed to be talking about.
Oh, okay. I was like, New York? Like,
We
I don't
finally
know.
get started with Full Metal Alchemist, and he leaves. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like the Major General that as soon as the action starts, he gets killed. So, it's just true to form.
It's
So
better that way.
he's actually
So-
got a really good episode for not being here. So anyway, sorry.
So the episodes that we're looking at, 51 through 56, because we're breaking up this last section into pieces because there's just too much to talk about. And we're going to talk about too much of it. So therefore, we ended with section 4 when those doll soldiers getting woken up because one of the military goons decided that in a panic, he's gonna open the immortal army that's totally gonna protect him and like defeat all of his enemies and bound souls from the Philosopher's Stones in them, and then they start screaming.
But that's okay because they're untested, so it'll be fine. So
Who the fuck does something without testing it?
Elon
the
Musk.
military in an emergency.
I was going to say this is Musk in a few years when he launches his AI robots.
Everybody understood the problems here, except for the people who are on copium.
Well, that's usually the way it works. They're in charge, so they get to push the button.
Right. I mean, what's great though is that the scientist that enabled him also gets eaten. So, just desserts and all that.
Well, it's not just because they had a few more meals to eat.
That's true. They was eating good
in the neighborhood. Applebee's.
Right. The
sponsor us if you like.
The doll soldiers wake up and they decide that they're hungry and they start eating people's faces. And one of the doctors is freaking out and has a gun and he starts shooting them. They're unkillable.
Right.
He's the one who designed them.
Right. Yeah. That's what panic looks like. So
yeah.
There's and to be clear, you said eating faces and metaphorically, yes, but one of them was trying to eat a boot. So we got a really good, visual for that. So
no, he was a sailor in a former life, so he needed to get back into it.
Yeah. They're disoriented and they're scared and blah blah blah. And so they just they have teeth, they're gonna use them. So
I feel the same every time I wake up.
Yeah. We see Ed and Scar and 3 chimeras. They are breaking into headquarters from underneath, and they come across this gigantic set of doors that looks exactly like the gate in the mystical doorway of In Between and all that stuff. As they're trying to open it futilely, the doors actually just start opening, and out pours the dolls. And so they have to start fighting them after they realize they can't be killed. They are a huge danger. They can't be let out of the headquarters building because otherwise they will start killing everybody in town. And so they seal off the exit and just kind of go to town.
Yeah. It's the door of truth, and the truth is terrible. So, bitey.
Yes. Olivier Armstrong has taken one of the military goons hostage and is trying to take control of headquarters. And doing very much a hostile takeover and is ordering him to order other people to stand down and whatnot. And he says things of fight against Briggs, don't let them take control. And she says, oh, so you did have a pair of testicles left. And then Sloth appears behind her. She gets out of the way and he squishes the military goon she had as a hostage into paste. And he
delicious. What a bother. So
the lingonberry jam that they have in IKEA.
It's delicious.
Another state secret recipe.
Yeah.
We put that shit on everything.
Yeah, because you don't have spices.
You know how you get a general into a bucket?
No.
Sloth. You know how you get him back out again?
You don't.
Doritos. So just okay.
All right.
Now I'm canceled. You're welcome. So
it's just a little like cannibalism.
In the city, in Central City, Mustang and his people have actually kind of left the city in an ice cream truck because they had to have a phone call with Gene Havoc and all of that stuff. But they're trying to get back into the city to do coup d'etat things. They hear on one of the radios. What?
Sorry.
Casual coup.
As far as shorthand goes,
it's the ice cream truck crew. That's how it should be. Actually hilarious. If there's was called then.
Right. But that was what they heard on the radio of they were looking for Mustang in an ice cream truck. And that's right when we see Buccaneer from Briggs just start squishing people with radios to dismantle them. But that's how they know that their disguise is at least known. We see that Heinkel, one of the chimeras, the one that turns into a lion, is outside of that town where Alphonse is, and he's outside of that dome that Al and Selin Bradley are inside, just kind of wandering around. He's a little injured and checking on them. And Pride is tapping on Al's head And Heinko puts together that it's Morse code. And
Right.
yeah, he's a little kid.
The-
He's just playing around.
the-
No,
I was gonna say,
he's
yeah,
getting
Al
help.
Al should have just been like, "That's my head. Take it
Right.
back
Yeah.
anyway." But I mean, he's clearly
the
not just
military
doing
kids.
that to do it.
Yeah. The military kids that are like, oh yeah, I'm just like not realizing that he's sending literally SOS, which everyone, should know for the record. So
Actually,
but
it might not have been SOS. I think he was actually giving
it
directions,
was
not just
3 dashes, 3 longs, 3 dashes. So
But
yeah.
at some point it wasn't 3, and I noticed that it was a 2. It was like a 3 and then a 2 and then a something, and so just like maybe he was doing something else. But I'm not fluent in Morse code, so
Jeez.
somebody else.
Sorry, it wasn't in my subtitles. So
the all of that allows Kimberly to have figured out that he needed to be there, and so he shows up and frees Pride in an explosion, of course.
obviously,
Right at that moment, the narrative switches to find May running around underneath the headquarters building in a whole bunch of tunnels and pipes and stuff. And she has Envy still as a little slug in a jar. And they're running away from the mannequin dolls that are trying to eat everything.
And she was supposed to be on a train back to Jing by now. But
Yeah.
she's like, I can't leave my friends. I'm 11 and I've got a homunculus in a jar. I better go back. So
Yeah, the homunculus that is taunting me to go back because otherwise I'm a bad person. I should totally do what he says.
Also, 11 is a vast overestimation.
probably.
She's like 8.
I think she says that she's like 12.
Yeah, well,
Gotcha.
yes, she's 12 in like anime world, maybe, but she's
in
8.
Jing years. Yeah. She's 12, but she's as mature as a 300-year-old. So
there's nobody in this show as mature as a 300-year-old except for like Armstrong's
Bradley.
sister.
Yeah, that's fair. And Bradley, I would say. For a bad guy, he's still pretty badass. So
Oh yeah, no, he's great.
And
yeah.
I guess
Okay.
Hohenheim and Pinocchio are pretty 300-year-old. And not just in
literally.
looks for the latter one.
Yeah, right. Hohenheim, literally, pretty much. But
Right. In the scuffle of May with the killer doll soldiers, the jar that's holding Envy breaks, and one of the soldiers picks him up and eats him. And that's like a weird, horrifying moment. But then Envy is able to just take over the body and eat the rest of them. And he's just absorbing all of the Philosopher's Stone souls in it and going back to his homunculus form. This is bad.
It's subjective.
it's a brief setback. Yeah. So
Well, I'll get there later. We go back to the town outside of Central where Alphonse is, because in that town, a little bit further away from the dome, we see Yoki and Marco. They're still teamed up together. And Marco is like, I got to help people. I got to go do things. And Yoki, a very reasonable coward, says, don't do anything because it would be dangerous. And they don't want you to be in danger. So you would be hurting them by doing something stupid, which is like getting in. Back to
We're
Hi.
missing Alex. Testing 1, 2, 3, Alex. We can see her in typing in what slideshow? Slightly pixelated.
Well, I assume this is a feedback loop from earlier. It's a good thing we all have these episodes memorized so we can talk about it without her.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got notes. So So yeah, May was attacked. The director, at least we've got her
The director
video
was attacked.
and not her audio. Envy was freed. Olivier struggles against Sloth. Armstrong joins the fight. So you got Major Armstrong shows up. Sister, and just like the whole thing. It's pretty awesome. They fight together and she almost pays him a compliment. And I think this is the line where it's like, you can't die. Think of all the paperwork that I'll have to do. And she's like, oh, you're not going to inherit the house anyway. That's going to Mustang. So,
the horror paperwork.
Right.
I mean, listen.
And almost complimenting her brother. Like, it's
They
Armstrong
make
is-
they make that assessment in Hot Fuzz too, where it's like, you can't incur that amount of mayhem and death without a considerable amount of paperwork.
True story.
I love Armstrong's voice. He's got that. I will not let you be. Her.
Yeah.
Nice sister. Whatever.
Well, it's even more impressive because he doesn't have a mouth, just a mustache.
Oh yeah, yeah. And of course, we saw the origin of the meme screenshot, right?
I mean,
Which
what?
one?
The
You're gonna have
one
to narrow
that's
that down.
the
I
shaking
was going to
hands.
say him flexing. That's
Oh,
like
yes.
5 of them.
Yeah, that's the like another episode though, right? We're still in the first one.
Oh,
we
fair. Oh, okay.
we do got to get moving on though, because we're running out of our time budget for this episode. But we're pretty close to the end.
We had
So
a budget.
Armstrong joins the fight. Well, I mean, we got 6 episodes, an hour, 10 minutes per episode, plus digressions and technical
I was
issues.
going to say, it's a good thing we spent those first 5 minutes on worthwhile topics.
Yes. And including this one. Thanks for that. So, and then basically, Alphonse, I think the final part of the episode is Alphonse and Heinkel, right? Basically dealing with
Yeah.
Gimli and Pride. And Alphonse kicks up a dust cloud. Pride tries to grab him, but he alchemically severs his legs. And then when he gets to Heinkel, and Heinkel's like all blown up and everything from Gimli showing up, and then Heinkel's like, sucks for them, I had an ace in my sleeve, and he's like, boom, and he's got a soul stone, so philosopher's stone. But yeah,
So that's Diablo.
yeah, same color, also not crystal and liquid, and made out of literally soul, but whatever. So yeah, Alphonse basically, I think they have some conversation of like, wait, I can't use that, and then Heinkel's like, I mean, but you're using it for good reasons. They're already dead, so
Yeah, what he says is don't use it for getting your body back, but use it to save the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not using it just for their own benefit. It's like actually just do the thing that is going to save millions of other people, and he accepts that part.
See, and that's Alphonse goes one step towards lawful evil because the ends justify the means. Just saying. So think how many more people you could save if you would just sacrifice 1 million from Xerxes.
Looking ahead, though, I think there's the justification in that episode is very similar to the reasoning that Hohenheim uses in his confrontation with Father, right? That because you recognize them as individuals, you recognize them as people. It's not just power to wield. So
that is true. Al he takes the stone and then he starts talking at it of like basically, please fight with me, and like let's get back at them together. He has a sentiment to it, so it is similar to what Hohenheim does.
I mentioned that because I think specifically one thing that I wanted to talk about with this series of episodes is this great the theme, I think, of the movie or of the show is that people are not things to be used. And I know that sounds a bit trivial, but if you look at it through that lens, you have the huge anti-war messaging, the kind of anti-imperial messaging, the whole confrontation that Mustang has and why he shouldn't give in to his worst impulses, that Father divests himself of the sins and trying to divest himself of the worst impulses, but while still being the villain, right? It's not enough to just get rid of your impulses. You have to actually I guess you have to, I don't want to integrate them and manage them rather than just be so focused on some abstract concept of your own will. I don't know. I guess I'm a bit jumbled here. What do you guys think on that point? Does that any of that make sense?
Well, it's usually the way those things tend to go is when someone likes to play the evolution of humanity thing. It's they're then imposing it on other people, and it's never in a good way. So by trying to curb your own worst impulses, you are essentially just cutting off humanity around you.
Oh yeah, and then people become just extensions of your will, right? So because Is it that you are kind of if you can't control yourself, you're too weak to lead others, and so you can only just use them as you can imagine them to be used. You can only ever use people. I don't know.
Yeah, well, mastery of the self tends to be that kind of thing you're supposed to, quote unquote, master before you move on.
Yeah, right.
Supposed to, but now look at our world. So,
Hey, listen, I have mastered myself, and nobody's come to give me a job, so that's really on the world.
did you mute? Did I lose it? Oh, I lost it.
Boy, technical difficulties are going great today.
Yeah, this is lovely. All right.
Yeah. Self-inflicted. I'm back. So
this is what happens when Andreas sucks all our internet away into, Germany.
So I guess
that
to
was totally
move
me doing
forward. Right, we do get another battle between Al and Pride and Kimberly and Heinkel, and it is a proper wizard battle for a couple minutes with a lot of dirt, but there's no mistaking it.
Alphonse is really clever in this fight. Just wanted to put a highlight on that because, he's outclassed, but, definitely holding his own. And I remember, I don't know if it's this episode or the next or whatever, but as part of the thing, I think it is probably bleeds into the next one because like these 3 episodes, more or less, like their stories all are combined. Right. But I remember the comment that Pride makes where it's like, he's doing the cloud trick again. How artless, and it's like, nah, he's playing into your underestimating him,
the thing you just did when you were tapping on the helmet and he was being stupid.
Right.
Now it's your turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Perhaps he is prideful.
Right.
That's like a
That's
theme.
crazy.
Yeah. Yes, because they did not expect Heinkel because Heinkel was blown up, but no, Al hadn't healed him because they didn't know of that hidden Philosopher's Stone, and so Al traps Pride in another one of the dirt dome things, and in that meantime, Kimberly was asking, "Do you have the stone? Why not just leave and run away and heal your bodies and go off into Utopia or something? Why are you staying here and you're going to die and you're going to fail?" And it's a philosophical argument that they have, not necessarily a moral one.
There's,
Al
of course,
says,
a
of course,
third option. You don't save
or
everyone.
there are
You don't win.
other options of I refuse that there are only 2 outcomes, that they should not be bound.
Yeah.
And so he said, there could be the third option of they stay, they save everyone, and they get their bodies back in exactly the way that they want. And Kimberly says, there's a fourth option of you die and everyone else dies and everyone loses.
Which is the one Kimberly wants. So,
yeah. But in that fight, Heinkel shows up out of nowhere to eat Kimberly a bit, and he's a gigantic lion chewing on his face, and it's a good thrashing. And then when Pride is about to do more things to get Al and is going to win the fight, and all of a sudden there's a car that just jumps out into the dirt and just barrels into Pride and Alphonse. Of course, they're both fine. And Marco had shown up and he's doing some alchemy stuff against Pride. And Yoki was driving the car, and also they just came to the rescue, and Yoki's about in tears because he's so scared. But everybody's able to pile into the car and leave. And Pride is annoyed, but he finds that Kimberly is still alive, barely.
And absorbs him. So,
yeah.
Because wouldn't you know it, that's just a soul just laying there. So,
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
The Armstrong siblings versus Sloth getting to new issues of now he has to try. And so I think it was Alex Armstrong. He's
what a bother.
This wasn't trying? You weren't going all out yet?
That's an anime trope, right? That's an anime trope. But I love that the twist is it's Sloth is actually the fastest of them.
Right.
But he just can't control it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the nice
fastest
twist.
homunculus. And so he can move forward really, really, really quickly to the point that they can't see it, but he cannot aim where he's going very well. So he keeps missing.
He just can't adjust in flight, Yeah.
His assignment is to kill Olivier Armstrong, and he keeps missing. But they try to make you do with that.
his line is that fighting's such a bother, but the biggest bother of all is fighting all out. and then he takes the gloves off, and it's like, oh, geez. So yeah.
Turns out he was wrong about that. The biggest bother is what comes later for him.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. There's a particular moment where Olivier is about to get squished because she tripped and trying to dodge him, and Sloth is going to go at her, and Alex just gets in the way and somehow manages to tank that for no reason. Like after they've established how powerful Sloth is, and then like he didn't get pulverized.
Right.
Okay.
Well, he's not saying it's a good idea, right? Like you got to think about it. Most armor is there that just in case you get shot, it should stop the shot. It doesn't mean you want to stand there and get shot though. So Armstrong did what was necessary to save his sister in the moment, but it's not like he's going to just stand there trading blows if he can avoid it.
No, I mean, he just took it.
Is this where he gets his shoulder dislocated for part of his? Yeah. So it's like, yeah, it's not like he didn't pay for it, and now he can only fight at like 2/3 effectiveness. So, but
what Alex Armstrong does next is in the alchemical fight, he's using his artistic muscles and his artistic alchemy to make gigantic spikes coming out of the wall that go straight through Sloth's head, which at least disables him for a little bit because he has to heal and like break the thing and duel with it.
We're going to need some kind of heavy artillery, which is luckily my specialty. So,
yeah. And then the doll soldiers that want to eat people show up. These are super zombies, and the military goons that are still there are panicking, and they don't know, do they fight Armstrong, who they've been told to fight? Do they fight these things that are scary? Do they fight the gigantic 3-story sloth? Like, they don't. And so Olivier is yelling at them of like, do something, make a decision, either kill me or fight with me, cooperate, and we can deal with these. Very much taking control.
Born leader.
Yes. And this episode 52 ends with Envy and May are fighting in the tunnels, and Envy is absorbing all of the dolls, and it goes to Ed and company who are fighting the dolls, and Mustang arrives, of just like admonishing Ed of like, how come you're always in such trouble when I show up? And Hawkeye is in tow. And episode 53 is called The Flame of Vengeance, and it's all about Mustang. Well, a good chunk of it's about Mustang.
It's a mystery what this one's about. So
yeah,
it's a Camaro. She just said.
We get to see the people in the city, like what they're talking about, like the rumors of what's happening and the uproar, and people are thinking like, so the people are turning on the Fuhrer, and is Mrs. Bradley okay? Is Selim okay? Like Mustang is the bad guy, but they had gotten Mrs. Bradley to a radio station, and she's telling her story of how there were military people ordering them to kill her and leave only Mustang alive, and so it was an assassination attempt. And the public sentiment is absolutely on Mustang's side, and he's being painted as somebody who is a hero and trying to save the Fuhrer's family. Is Ross and Fury and Breda. That's with her. Breda interrupts some of the radio stuff to say that the train that the King Bradley was in, it was exploded because she hadn't known that attempt had happened on him, and so she faints, and everybody's so scared of what's going on, like with the family, and where is the child Selim. It's a funny moment of the like radio manager like giving a runaround to the military guys of like, oh, they have guns on me, I can't do anything. They're demanding that we keep it going, and it's like they demand to talk to Mustang, and Mustang's not here, and he basically does the Han Solo of like, I'm gonna shoot the thing. Boring conversation anyway.
Yeah. Oh God, they're shooting!
Yeah.
And then hangs up on him. It was so good. It's so funny.
I didn't make
because they're all
comparison originally, but that's a good comparison.
Yeah, they're all laughing behind his performance and everything like that. And it's such a great moment.
And Maria Ross says something in support of Mustang, and her voice is recognized by her buddy that thought she was murdered by Mustang on the radio, and so now he clicks, like, understands everything. If she's alive and everyone's good and happy, but that doesn't pay off until later. Let's see. then there's a bunch of Ishvalans that just show up in the city. It's like, wait, you didn't know that the train had happened? That they've been keeping secrets from you? Yeah, everything that they're saying on the radio is true, and they're giving validity to Mustang's version of the story, and just they're being listened to for some reason.
Yeah, and I got a tone of it wasn't snark, but it was like kind of knowing. It's like letting them in on the dirty little secret that their country is bad. But the Ishvalans know because they were subject to that horrible, meaningless war for so long. But like, your country is keeping secrets from you, which is a funny line. With that.
Really? Countries are back, like led by bad people.
There's one of the guys at the HQ building at they're trying to defend because also they're scared shitless and like if they hold up in this building they'll be fine. Like they can't break into military headquarters, can they? And he says they would need a tank to do that. But guess who thought ahead? Briggs brought a tank.
With a straight line like that, thank you for the introduction.
Exactly. It's another one of their like kind of condescension of like, we're the best because we're central. It's like they can't have brought a tank, the one thing that they would need to do this when they were planning a coup.
Right.
This is the one thing they didn't want to happen.
One of those joke lines like you would get from Dresden about diplomacy being the choice between a gun and a sandwich or whatever, right? In a similar kind of vein, there's a similar joke about like when you've got two dictators trying to do a coup, whoever gets a tank on the other guy's front lawn wins. So that's one of those defining moments. But
yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't work out for these guys, but we'll get to that. So
it
ultimately does, but but the tank wasn't the deciding factor.
No, the tank is important, but the tank doesn't necessarily sway. All right, it cuts to Mustang, and down in the underneath of the headquarters building, he says something about remembering Hawkeye crying, and she was so cute, and he wants to see her face being happy. And she says, "You don't like liquids," instead talking about maybe she'll cry at happiness, and he gets annoyed. But then, because he is the flame alchemist, he can just deal with all of the dolls really, really quickly and burns them to a crisp. And Ed is still kind of unhappy the fact that they were people, sort of, and the people died. It's like, but they were enemies, and you cannot undo what they are. So they are now ash.
Can't undo that either. So,
yeah.
Especially if you don't want to use a Philosopher's Stone yourself. You're cutting off all your options here. You can't have it always. Pick one.
May and Envy running around in the same tunnels, but they fall into that same room that the rest of them are in. And
they fell through a plot hole into the room where everybody else was. So,
yes. And May is happy. She sees friends, and Scar immediately yells at her, "You idiot, you should be back in Jing. Why are you here?" And Envy is kind of milking the spotlight because he thinks like, oh, all of the enemies are right here. And so I can get them to hurt each other and fight, and it's going to be great. He's taunting everyone of like Scar should hate Mustang and Hawkeye and everything. But Mustang kind of cuts through that and asks, who killed Maze Hughes? And Ed knows where this is going, and Ed gets uncomfortable. But Envy tries to play it off. It was Maria Ross, right? That's like what we did in the papers. Yeah. But Mustang knows that's not true. And
you burned an innocent? Ooh, yeah.
Because Envy's kind of dumb, at least in this instance.
Yeah.
And Envy gleefully admits that it was him that did it, and that he did it with having Gratia's face on it, Maze Hughes' wife. And everybody is quite horrified.
Yeah, and that's the way he looked right before I killed him. So yeah, because Envy takes on her guys again and everything like that. It's like, oh, well, that makes it easy for Mustang. So thank you for admitting to it. So now I can burn you to death 1,000 times. So
yes, Mustang is starting to go a little bit crazy, and he's burning Envy over and over and over. And Hawkeye tells Ed to go on ahead, and Mustang agrees that they should go do plot stuff. They're gonna deal with Envy for a while. Ed is worried, but not about Mustang's safety. But then it has a second of staring at Scar, and Scar is clearly thinking but not saying anything, as it does a lot. Scar and Ed eventually run back to Mustang to help. Envy is trying to run away from Mustang, and he had like gone into his like big monster size, and like that just makes the target easier to burn.
Yeah.
And so then he
Right.
gets smaller and runs away. And
Mustang is pretty brutal in this, right? Because while Envy is talking off, the first one burns out Envy's tongue, which just regenerates. But it's like, how did it feel to have your tongue turn to grease? And then Envy gets big, and it's like, why would you make yourself a bigger target? And burns out Envy's eyeballs. And it's just like, there's no winning for you. There's no situation where you're gonna get the upper hand here. So
it's that part where Tony Stark is talking to Loki. It's like, you don't understand. There's no throne. There's there's no situation where you come out on top of this.
Right.
Yeah. As they go chasing down through some of the tunnels, Envy turns into Maze Hughes for a second to try to get Mustang to hesitate or at least be unhappy. And Mustang does not hesitate, and he just immediately starts burning them. It's like, why would you do that to your best
What's
friend?
wrong
like,
with
I
you?
know he's dead.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Mustang can be on my zombie apocalypse team, because I've told everybody, It's like, man, as soon as you get bitten, it's like 2 in the face. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I loved you, but you're dead now. So, like,
he's also very area of effect handy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, he killed all the immortal legion. It's like, zombies aren't even immortal. Like, come on. So, but yeah, it's pretty funny with the whole, like, Envy's trying all their tricks, and Mustang does not care. He's got, purity of fire now. So the fire will cleanse the truth out of you. So.
Yeah. Mustang had ordered Hawkeye to stay in that one room when he went to chase after Envy, but she says, even though he's not there and can't hear it, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to disobey, and follows after him. And then the episode ends. She and Mustang kind of meet at a corner, and then she pulls a gun on him. Episode 54, Beyond the Inferno, it starts with a flashback at Ishval when Hawkeye was burying a dead Ishvalan child, and they are both very broken soldiers, and Mustang is saying, let's go home, let's leave this place. She asks him to burn the tattoo on her back that is the secret of flame alchemy, so that no other flame alchemist can happen. And he eventually agrees that he would do so with as little scarring as possible. They are both responsible for the amount of flame alchemy, or at least she feels it that way. It was her father's secret, but in the present of Hawkeye versus Mustang, she says, when he says something of like, why were you pointing a gun at me? And she says that when we are alone, he calls me Riza. And then Envy breaks. It's like, so that's how it is between you. And she immediately starts shooting. I lied.
Right. No, but thanks for being an idiot. So
it's the homunculi. It's like, what's that mean? Homunculi try to correctly estimate the cleverness of humans challenge. Impossible. They just cannot. They're incapable of correctly assessing what humans can do, which is great.
It's mostly, I think, like Envy is being duped. Hawkeye
these
is
are all different tricks
clever.
too. Like, these are all different tricks. Like, Al's thing with pride is a different trick than Riza's trick with envy. It's a different trick than Armstrong and his bros trick against Sloth. It's not even really a trick; it's just punching him in the face. But it's
even the Führer technically gets tricked because they think it's we have to go back now because we see that the trick is coming. But no, actually, we loaded up your train car with explosives. That was the trick.
Right.
Yeah.
Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
So
nice.
Hawkeye uses her guns on Envy, which isn't great against Monkey, but it does actually hurt him a little bit. And then
Pretty
Mustang
good for attracting everybody else's attention, though. So
yeah. Mustang finds them, and he says, "What do you think you're going to do to my irreplaceable subordinate?" And then there's a lot of fire until Envy is a leech again. The Mustang starts squishing him under his boot, and he's being quite cruel. And then Hawkeye draws on Mustang again, saying that she will take care of the rest, and so he needs to stop. Ed and Scar show up, and Ed flips Envy out of Mustang's grip again, of like just using an alchemy trick, and they're yelling at each other of that Mustang has gone crazy and he needs to stop, and somebody else will deal with Envy. Scar says that he does not have the ability to criticize anyone else's need for revenge, but he wonders what kind of world Mustang can create if he is being driven by revenge.
And that I think is the key. Like, I mean, it doesn't have to be revenge, but what kind of world will you create if you're driven by this? For him, it's revenge at this point. And for Scar, it had been revenge. For Father, it's I forget. I don't remember if the full true motivation of Father is given out just yet.
Not quite yet.
Series. But yeah, so what kind of world will you create if you were in charge of it? And alchemy is such a great tool for that, but so is war. And I think alchemy is actually coded, and this might give kind of my big brain play, I think alchemy is kind of coded as a bad thing in this universe. It's not actually that good to be an alchemist.
I mean, alchemy is not good or evil, right? It's a reflection on the people who use them, and much like the view of most grimdark fantasy, you know, how there are no good humans or necessarily no evil humans. There are in grimdark, I guess, but it's, you know, it's complicated. But I don't think alchemy in itself is.
Well, I'm just thinking ahead to the ending. What actually gets Ed what he wants this whole series? It's giving up alchemy is what does it. The act of giving up alchemy is the good thing. It's what sets him up for
well, let's bigger about that later.
Okay, fair enough. Just setting the seeds. Been saying that since the podcast series started. It's not a
bad thought. It's worth talking about, but we can save that for when that more happens.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So Mustang and Hawkeye. Mustang had told Hawkeye in the past to shoot him if he ever gets out of line. That was her job by being his right-hand person. And now she is threatening to do that. And so it's the culmination of, and what would you do after I die? It's like, well, I don't plan on living an easy life. And it's just their relationship is bringing him back into normal after Scar had kind of said what was needed to penetrate through his hate. And so Mustang comes down and apologizes for putting Hawkeye through something traumatic again. And Envy starts talking to everybody. Is like, why aren't you killing each other? All of you should be hating each other. And it should be like, the whole cast is here. So have at it. And to kill each other, be killed, and have all the trauma and angst and everything, and it would be great. And Ed starts talking to Envy of like, you're jealous of humans. You're upset that you don't get to have what other humans have. That's what you want all the time, putting on their clothes and their faces and doing this. So Envy forces free, and he can't handle the pity. So he pulls out his own Philosopher's Stone to kill himself. And that is the end of one homunculus. And Mustang is upset that Envy killed himself and calls him a coward, which he's going to die no matter what. Like, there wasn't any other way around it anyway. But go back to the Armstrongs versus Sloth. And Sloth has eaten a spike out of the wall, and he's like starting to break free of it. And Alex Armstrong is like gearing up to go against Sloth again, and he's very valiant, and he's got lots of muscles, and he's very sparkly, and he's just like all of the courageous things with his artistic muscles and artistic alchemy, and he's punching things. The headquarters building is about to fire on the tank in an urban area, which is going to have a lot of bad things happen, and Buccaneer from Briggs just kind of appears behind the guy who's giving the order and ties him up and says, you were going to do that horrible thing? And how could the Briggs officers be inside the building when they're clearly outside the building in the tank, right? Well, the tank was a cover to making a lot of noise for somebody to dig them a tunnel under the building. And who would do that? It's Izumi Curtis, who's she introduced herself as an alchemist this time.
Yeah. she's the bear of Briggs, and she's shed her disguise as a simple housewife, and she's now assumed the mantle of an alchemist.
She thinks of that as a disguise.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting.
Yeah,
she does and she doesn't. Later, she when talking to Olivier, she says, "Oh no, I'm just a housewife and an alchemist," and now they're equal measure.
Right.
But yeah, the episode
kind of been hiding, like ever since her failed human transformation, that trauma. That's why she calls herself a housewife, not an alchemist. She doesn't want to recognize that part of herself, and this is kind of her doing that, accepting that part. That's why later she's now I'm an housewife and an alchemist.
Sure. And I think this is where you actually get the scene, right, with Armstrong and her husband. I can't remember his name right now.
So, I mean, yeah, that episode technically ends with Hohenheim arriving at Father's place, and it's like, ooh. And so the next episode is titled "The Adult's Way of Life." Right. And pretty early on, it's like the tank ceases to fire. Briggs has control of the building, and Olivier tells Buccaneer of the doll, so says annihilate all of them while they're inside the building. Don't let them leave and go out into the city. And some of the soldiers are helping distract Sloth so that Armstrong can get away, but Alex refuses to run away from the battlefield again. Izumi Curtis arrives, and this should be impossible. She flips Sloth in his attack and sends him across the room because she's a tiny woman and he's 3 stories tall. Yes, she's amazing and can do a lot of stuff, but also this should still be impossible.
Conservation of momentum. So all she did was provide a fulcrum. So.
She is too tiny to be said fulcrum, but like whatever. She flips Sloth into her husband Sig, and then they pulverize him. And then this is the handshake with all the muscles and the sparkles. And
Dylan, you son of a bitch! I thought you were dead. Oh wait, sorry.
And they have never met each other before. I don't think Sig and Armstrong with them. They could have possibly when everything happened and with Greed the first time. But they just kind of see each other and their physique. And it's like, you're a good guy. I like you.
Such, what is it? It's like such amazing muscles or whatever. And just like Armstrong starts gushing over him now. And, So,
I mean, clearly he is an Armstrong bastard that nobody knew about. Otherwise, he couldn't have the Armstrong sparkle.
Sure.
It is a technique that is passed down for generations. Remember?
Well, it skipped over what's her face, so it went to him.
Oh, yeah, right. What is the?
She doesn't sparkle.
Did the show talk about the reason? Is there a reason? His sister refuses to let him be the heir. Is it really just that he's weak? Is it because
she just doesn't like him?
He's a coward. He abandoned his post.
That's right.
That's the entire given reason. Happen. So yeah, and she eggs him on the entire time they're fighting. Like, thanks, but you're still a coward. Types of stuff, So
well, there's that triumphant moment later on we're about to get to. Where he's, that's my brother. Which nice switch.
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think when he gets his arm dislocated, like I think she even tells him to disengage, and he's like, "I swore I would never run from another battle" or something like that. So he just keeps pressing the attack, and then
true.
I want to say it's when the Curtises show up that he gets his arm back too. Like Sloth grabs him or something like that, and like relocates his shoulder, and it's like, "Yep, oh, see what." There's another one like that where it's like, they start like stretching him and it like it's probably Incredibles is what I'm thinking, right? Yeah, exactly. Where he like fixes his back and it's like, oh, now we can fight again. So it's a moment like that, but yeah.
Okay. So with their forces combined, Sloth eventually does die of enough damage, and he's all like bummed out about it. Like, this is a pain. Living is a pain. Dying is a pain. This sucks.
Right. Everything's a pain.
I think this episode had a very clickbaity title. It had nothing to do with paying bills or getting groceries.
But what he says, Alex says, us adults can't just lie around while the young ones fight.
that's where that comes in, is that they do have that moment, with the Armstrongs and the Curtises basically saying, we can't leave this to the kids, we got to show them how it's done. That's more where the title comes from. But and then you've got father and not father fighting, so which is another part of it.
Father and mother.
Yeah, Hohenheim's the mom, so
obviously.
So with Hohenheim and father, they kind of just stare at each other a bit. And Hohenheim is the one here that has a sense of humor.
Hey,
shouldn't actually be surprising.
I'm not going to let you besmirch the epic thing that is wizard duels. Okay, the staring is important. So
I'm not besmirching
they just
anything.
kind of stare at each other a while, like, yes, because they're gathering their power.
No, they're doing the introductory taunting, and Hohenheim has a great line.
Right.
He says, "You used to be fun
waggling,
with all of those emotions." Like back when he was a dwarf in the flask, like he was entertaining and he had emotions and things, and now he's just that's it.
Right.
So
well, and it's great though, because you can tell a lot about the characters from these interchanges, right? So Hohenheim is throwing jabs left and right, but is completely unfussed the entire time, even though father has divested himself supposedly of all of his emotions, or at least his primary ones. He's the one losing his shit, trying to attack Hohenheim outright. And Hohenheim the entire time, like he almost gets crushed by a wall or whatever, or part of the ceiling falls on him. So he just opens the door. And it's like, I told you, I'm not very good at fighting. Would you please be more careful? He's just fucking egging him on the entire time.
It's like they're in a way they're kind of stalemated. They know each other too well, and they do like the same moves at each other in a way that doesn't work. And so Hohenheim just kind of almost finds it boring. Yeah.
Until father tries to rip his heart out. So
he does taunt father of is he calling himself father and has all these children because he was actually trying to have a family in the way that the humans do, and father gets angry about that because how dare you compare him to a human. And he says he wants to become the perfect being, and then he rips some of Hohenheim's souls out. But
well,
he played.
I think that was on accident. Yeah, I think that part was on accident. It's not entirely clear what he was trying to do. I really did think he was trying to just pull his heart out or something, but it's clear he gets infected. And part of why I say that is because when he disengages, he's holding his hand and it's still, whatever happened is in there, right? So he doesn't just absorb it like he would, a philosopher's stone or something. But
yeah. That explanation comes in a bit as it changes to Alphonse and Marco were trying to head to the headquarters building, and their car that they were in, Yoki got it stuck somewhere, and so trying to get it out. And you see a man from the waist down walking in the background, and I only noticed it this time.
Everybody knows who that is, though. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If you catch it, I guess. So
yeah. I mean, maybe I've caught it before, but it's just
Yeah.
So and then
because don't you see he's waist down, but you also see his saber tip or something like that, and you're like, I know exactly who the fuck those shoes belong to.
Yeah.
Is it too much to ask that we shot out his other eye too?
Yeah.
Izumi and Armstrong and the Briggs, and they're they find that very long staircase that goes down where the dolls came from. Izumi catches one of the military goons that was trying to not die to one of the dolls, and he had said something of this is not what you were for. Did that man lie to us? And she's like, tell me more of who that man is and what he might have said to you.
Well, that good gentleman specifically.
Right. I'll give you anything if you joined my side. And it's like, what do you got to offer her at this point? So,
the Buccaneer announces that he took control of the gate, and everybody is celebrating, everybody from Briggs, at least, the good guys. And then King Bradley comes over the radio and announces that he is back. And that's the end of an episode.
Whoops.
Yeah. I don't remember if it's now or if it's later, but there's some call of every central force head to headquarters. It's oh, I'm sorry, were you guys not fighting before? Were some of you held in reserve while Briggs took over the entire, citadel and everything?
I mean, clearly the Central Military Command is not very good at anything, coordinating.
At being central or military commanded.
Yeah, probably on purpose, right? You know,
Yeah,
the classic, we
absolutely.
can't have goons that are too useful because then they might be a credible threat. Wow,
Threatable
that
crit.
was, yes, that was
Threadable.
amazing.
Incredible. I like that.
Yeah. Thank you,
Threatable crits are
subconscious.
definitely not what you
So,
want.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of people that were probably hiding out or just like, if I stay here, I'm doing my job, but I'm not in the middle of the fighting, right? Whatever.
Yeah, or they got shot in the leg by one of Hawkeye or something, and they're just laying there like, yeah, I'm gonna tap out of this one.
Yeah. So episode 56, the last one that we're doing for today, I believe it's called like the Fury's Return or something.
Yes.
And it opens with in the desert, Hohenheim was muttering and talking and like, just hear me out. And then he passes out, and some people from Xing that are on camels, and they find him, and he's alive. They remark on his gold hair, and Hohenheim apologizes to someone named Sergeants, and he like lists off the people that father had just absorbed, as like Sergeants and his son and Kaya, and like he names them and what they had done, whether they were carpenters or wanting to be scholars or like housewife florists and everything. And they all are people who are known to Hohenheim before. Now he did the thing that father would never do, is that he talked to the souls that were inside him, and it was 536 and 329 souls. 1,000. I forgot 1,000 in there.
536,000. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they are aligned with him, and they want another shot at father. And so the spikes start growing from father from the inside and breaking the skin, because Hohenheim thinks that it's still a dwarf in a container. You just need to break the container and it will die. And it kind of looks like that for a little bit, but then the dwarf thing just kind of leaves the skin of father behind, and it's like I don't know, like a thing with teeth.
Yeah. Well, and I mean it looks kind of like what the creature coming out of the taboo, looks like, right? Without being upside down and everything. And it looks a little bit like what the truth is, that Ed and Alphonse have talked to and whatever. But yeah, I think the point is like, they might expand on it later, but it's like he is still a dwarf in a flask. He just got a much bigger flask. It wasn't the flesh mask, that was the thing.
Just above them, a gigantic eye opens as if it was like one of either pride or when the transmutation circle happens, and then it just cuts away.
Right.
And we see King Bradley, the Fuhrer, walking triumphantly back into, or not even triumphantly, he just walks into his own castle, and like Buccaneer had said something of like, you're coming in through the front, you're not like sneaking in some other way. And he says, why should I have to walk in through the back door of my own castle?
It's I will not be something like embarrassed, right? I will not take the shame of doing that. It's something like that.
This is a translation different, or it's like, because he has to like, why should I have to go through the back door of my own castle versus like taking the shame of it is a little bit different in these languages, I think.
Because shame implies that they could have.
I don't know. You watched the sub.
Of course I do.
He's not.
I'm a hardcore
nobody
weeb.
Nobody should watch the dub.
The dub is amazing. This dub is like the greatest of dubs.
It's a pretty good dub.
It's a really good dub.
It's a good dub. I still choose subs.
That's fine. But
I
I
can't miss like a third to half of what's going on because I was busy reading. So it's a practical pick. So
Skill issue.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
My vote goes to the director to stay as director.
Well, no one's voting against that, but we just disagree on what format to ingest.
We disagree on everything, including this disagreement right now.
I
disagree with you.
Bradley, he is walking into his own castle, and he's kind of decimating the brig soldiers as he goes by, and like slices up the tank, and people just kind of not quite exploding, but they're falling apart in pieces, including like tank shells that are being like thrown at or fired at him, and he just like cuts it in half, to the point that like my husband asked the question of, is there something special about his sword that I had forgotten? It's like, no, I don't think there is. It's just a sword. And at one point he loses it, and it's like he still does that thing with something else.
Yeah. Yeah, he
But-
pulls daggers off some of the brig soldiers, and it's like, well, it's not my usual weapon, but it'll do. So
Yeah.
That'll do.
Like Buccaneer had charged at him. Of course he does. And Bradley destroys his automail arm. And so you would think that he's out of the fight. But Fullman, the warrant officer that gone to Briggs, I think he's now a lieutenant, is one of Mustang's guys. He valiantly is trying to defend the gate with a gun. And he's like about to fall apart into tears. And he's apologizing to Mustang. He's like, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to die here. And Greed appears from above, or he's just kind of sitting on a ledge and is taunting Bradley. You show Mrs. Bradley at the radio station, and she is informed that King Bradley is now seen alive. And is he safe? Is he injured? We don't know, but he is at least alive. And so Ross
kicking a whole lot of ass. So
yeah. Maria Ross and Fury, one of Mustang's people, are talking about they might have to say that Armstrong is the bad guy, one of the Armstrongs, both of them maybe, if they can't sway.
Olivia Armstrong. Yeah, so that's
I hadn't caught which one they were talking about because I was taking tons of notes and reading subtitles, and because I could do this shit.
See?
Eat up.
But you missed
I
something.
knew it, and
didn't
I was
ya?
reading subtitles.
But you weren't taking notes at the same time. So
I don't need notes editing, and I don't have to read the episode. So no notes.
Because they were openly aligned with Mustang, they might have to do weird things about it, but they really don't want to. And then Greed and Wrath are taunting each other a bunch. Greed and Ling are cooperating to try to fight this one guy. Of like, no matter what, they both have reasons to hate Wrath and or Bradley. Buccaneer's still trying to help, and he gets stabbed through the stomach, and that is how Bradley loses his sword, because it's like mighty tough abs you have or something, and he's like, it's stolen the sword and walked away injured.
This is mine now.
There are some more central forces that arrive, and Fullman has to figure out what to do with them, even though he is completely out of his depth, because Greed Ling needs to deal with Wrath. Fu and Lanfan arrive in puffs of smoke, as they often do, and Fu is introduced to who King Bradley is, and he gets quite angry because that is the man who took his granddaughter's arm. So he is gearing up to go to war again. And that is the end of episode 56.
And that is the end of this episode of While We Weren't Recording. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/brokenjars. We are live every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, except when we're not. If you support us on Patreon, you can get access to Discord, where you can yell at us for not being live some Saturdays. Yep, I think that's about it. Leave us a comment, subscribe.
Masterful.